Hello, I'm John Adams, editor of Digital Photo, and welcome to this video lesson which is all about split toning effects in Photoshop and Elements. Now, split toning is a very traditional technique which involves assigning different toning colours to different tonal ranges of a black and white image. They always say show not tell, so let's have a look at what a split toning effect looks like. There you go. We've got blue toning in the shadows and the midtones, and then a sort of a beigey yellow toning in all the highlights. So we've got a black and white image going on here, but we've got two different colours in the black and white mix. Now this is a fantastic effect that can really breathe life into a mono image. And what we're going to do is find out exactly how we can do it. Now I'm using Elements 8 here, but the technique is exactly the same for any version of Elements, or indeed for the full version of Photoshop as well. So you can follow it along with any software package. Right, we'll go back to our starting point, and then we'll see how it's done. Open up this picture from the disk. It's called beachrocks.jpg. That'll launch up on screen in its full colour version. Now instead of converting this to mono, what we're going to do is bring up our Layers palette, so just click on the Layers tab, or hit F7 in Photoshop, F11 in Elements, and then we're going to go for an adjustment layer. That's this half black, half white circle. Click on that, and then from the list, don't select Hue Saturation as you might want to do with toning, but instead select Gradient Map. So Gradient Map is the one, and that brings up this weird effect here. Now you can see we've gone to black and white, but it's not a very good colour, and that's because what it's doing is sampling from the foreground and background colours. And they weren't black and white when we started. So what we're going to do is click in this gradient box here, and that brings up another palette, which is the Gradient Editor. From this list of presets, we're going to choose black and white. So we're going to click on that, and that gives us a mono result, because we've got black through to white. And they're the only two tones used in our gradient map. Now that's what we're going to come back to, the black and white, but I guess we have to make the journey. Everybody does it. What happens if you click one of these other things when you're in the gradient editor? Well, you'll get a weird posterized image based on the two colours involved. So let's have a quick look. Let's try this one here. Violet, green, orange. Pretty gaudy tones in that one, perhaps the red and green, maybe the rainbow. Yuck! You can get some pretty horrible colours going on by clicking on these presets. So the important thing to remember is that these aren't set up for you to use for black and white toning. If you want to do that, you have to make your own. So if you want black and white, the best place to start with is the black and white preset. Click on that and things start looking a little more normal. Okay, what we're going to do now is edit the gradient we have. And to make a split-toned image, we need to add a couple of colour stops. Now these are the stops down here, just underneath the gradient bar. And what we're going to do is simply add them below the bar here. So let's just click below the line, click once, and a stop is added. Now we need to set up a colour for that stop, and we just do that by clicking in the colour box. Click once in there, and then you can get the colour you want. Now I'm going to go for a blue tone as our sort of darker toning treatment. And I know what I'm after. I'm after RGB values, specific RGB values of 60, 80, and 110. Now I can key those in, 60, and select green, and put 80 in green, and then select 110 in blue. That's the exact colour I'm after, though of course I could have simply clicked around here or just moved the slider to get the colour choice I wanted. Once you've got that in the colour picker, click OK, and that colour will be set as your colour stop. Now if we have a look at the image as well, we can see what's going on. It's in the wrong place at the moment, and we can actually move our colour stop around. You can see by doing that, by moving it to various places along the gradient, we get a different effect. Now I think for this one, probably about 33%, that looks about right there in terms of contrast. So somewhere between sort of 33 and 40% is the good one. I'm going to go for 33. Once that's done, what I then need to do is create my second colour for my split tone effect, and that needs to go higher up the register. So all I have to do is the same thing again, just click somewhere on here, underneath the gradient bar, then we need to set up a different colour. Now I'm going to go for a complementary colour, so I want something that's kind of a beigey yellow to go with the blue I've set for the darker tones. So we click on our colour swatch, and it's going to be something in the yellows, something down here. That's the kind of area, and I imagine it'll be over there. Now I've picked a colour, I've pre-selected that one, and for that I'm going for 208 in red, 208, 184 in green, so 184, and then 136 in blue, 136, there we go. That gives me this sort of a warm beigey colour to use as my highlights. Once I've got that selected, I click OK, and there we can see our split-toned image taking shape. Now I need to set the location of that particular colour stop so I can decide whereabouts it falls in the tonal range. So I can move that up or down to give a more dramatic or less dramatic effect for those colours. Now let's just, I think it's going to be somewhere around 75 really, yeah, about 3/4 of the way along. So that's affecting our very light greys in the black and white image, and that looks pretty good. Now I can vary these if I want to. If I don't want the blue, I can easily change that. I just click on the blue, click on the colour, then I can reset it to something else. Maybe we go for a dark green instead, and we'll see instantly the effects of that dark green. Or maybe we want something much warmer, and we go for a red colour instead with the beigey yellow coming through too. You can see there's all kinds you can do to mix up different split toning effects. But for now, I'm going to stick with that blue colour. So I'm just going to stick with the current mix and click OK to that one. Once we've confirmed our colours, we then click OK to the gradient editor, and then we click OK to the adjustment layer if you're using a version prior to Elements 8. If you are using Elements 8, just click on the Adjustments tab to get it off the screen. And there's our wonderful split toning effect, all created through gradient maps. That really is good fun, and it's an excellent method of split toning which gives you loads and loads of control. But there is another way, and that's using the full version of Photoshop, and we'll come on to that next. Okay, here we are in the full version of Photoshop in CS4. We're going to split tone this image using channels. Now, of course, the first thing we need to do is get it into black and white. So we're going to open up a layers palette. To do that, hit F7 on the keyboard to bring it up. Then we're going to just click on the adjustment layer icon and choose Channel Mixer to get our black and white mix. Now, if we click on the default button here, we've got various options. I think we'll go for the infrared option here. That looks okay. Then I think we're just going to customize it a little more. Green's up fairly well there. Let's drop the blue down a bit to get a darker sky and increase the red a touch. That's the sort of thing. What we're looking for really, the total percentage, we're looking for about 100% when we're using the channel mixer. We can get a bit less blue in again, I think. Crank up the red. You can see that sky is darkening nicely as we drop the output value of the blue channel. So I think that looks okay there. Again, it's not critical, it's entirely image dependent, so take a look at your image and see what gives the best result. But once we're happy with our adjustment, and we've channel mixed in the way we want to, then we're ready to move on to our split toning effect. So the next thing we want to do is create another adjustment layer. So we click on the adjustment layer icon, and this time we're going to use curves. Because curves gives us access to different channels, and we can bend them in a way that we can't bend levels. Select curves from the list, and that brings up our curves palette in the adjustment layer here. Now what we want to do is change the nature of these curves. So instead of doing RGB, where we'd normally make contrast changes, and we'd do something like that, create an S-curve or something to make a nice contrast change, but instead of doing it on our RGB channel, what we're going to do is select the individual channels, and we're going to choose red from the list here. And we're going to bend that curve into an S shape. If we pull it down, our image becomes more cyan, and if we push it up, our image becomes more red. So what we end up with is a split tone automatically. We've got cyan in the shadows here, and then we've got red in the highlights. So once we've got that S-curve into our red channel, the job's done. We have a split-toned image. So click OK if you're in a version prior to CS4. If you're in CS3, CS2, CS, click OK to that, or you can just leave it if you're using CS4. And then to change the colours, all you need to do is make another adjustment layer. So you click on the adjustment layer icon once more and select Hue Saturation from the list. This gives us our third adjustment layer at the top of the layers stack, and all we have to do now is move the hue slider to change the toning colours we've used. And by mixing up the different hues, you get different colours immediately. There's our kind of blue and yellow there, running through to our red and cyan. If you want a bit more life in it, crank up the saturation a touch. You can see you've got quite a number of options of different toning colours automatically just by making those couple of steps. So I'll show you that once more in case it's still confusing. I'll just delete these adjustment layers first of all. We have our black and white conversion first and foremost. That's pretty straightforward. Once we've done that, we create adjustment layer and choose curves. Instead of going for the RGB, we instead use the red channel and simply pull down the bottom and push up the top to give us an instant split toning effect. There we go. I'll over-egg it slightly so it's nice and dramatic so you can really see what's going on. Once we've done that, we create another adjustment layer and choose Hue Saturation, and all we do is move the hue slider left or right to give us our different split toning color options. And that's all there is to it. Really quick, really simple, and a nice fast way of doing things if you've got the full version of Photoshop. But the first method I showed you, using gradient maps, is really good, and that works for anything. Elements, Photoshop, whatever software you have. Great method to try, and well worth giving it a go. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.